And ladies and gentlemen, all I ask you today is that you be honest, open-minded, and perhaps most of all fair. The prosecution will have you believe that someone committed a murder in which the deceased Max Rhodes was killed, yet there is absolutely no evidence that there was even a crime committed here. There's more evidence that the deceased Max Rhodes committed suicide than that our client murdered him. From the beginning of the trial, the prosecution has only matched together small circumstantial evidence that point to murder. None were concrete. For instance, the police officer testified that he heard from the people that Imari was the only person running from the scene. He said that he drove some blocks down before arresting Imari because he believed that she pushed Max. The idea that Imari pushed Max, ran down several flights of stairs, and managed to make it several blocks down the street is completely ridiculous. Imari herself even testified that she didn't even know Max had fallen until she was stopped by Kelson. He never saw Imari push Max. He just assumed because she was the only person he heard about leaving the scene. The prosecution tries to make Imari out to be a violent person by saying she pushes and hits her boyfriends. Imari's ex-boyfriend, Eric, has always had a bad reputation. In fact, their relationship ended because he always lied and got Imari in trouble. Who knows if he's lying again? My last example is Kennedy Jackson, our teacher, who says she loves all her students, but has nothing to say about how Imari was one of her worst students. How can Imari be so bad if everyone close to her says she has a wonderful personality? From her testimony, it sounds as if Ms. Jackson is showing favoritism towards Max. As you've heard from our witnesses, Imari is a sweet, upbeat person, and for her to commit such a crime is completely out of character. My client loved Max, but he was clearly going through a difficult time in his life. His father died, his own mother neglected him, and to top it all off, the love of his life left him. The boy was clearly at the end of his rope. Max's suicide was inevitable. As you've heard from our witness, Deontay Turner, who testified that he saw Max standing over the edge of the building, and Imari was nowhere in sight. Imari, innocent, down to earth, even testified that she wasn't even at the scene when he fell. Whether Max killed himself, accidentally fell, or was supposedly murdered, doesn't mean Imari was involved. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm now going to ask that you use those qualities that each one of you possess to come to a fair decision. Remember that the burden of proof in each case is on the state. If they do not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that our client has committed the crime, then our client must be found not guilty. Let me give you a simple way of looking at this. Picture in your mind the scales of justice. On one side is all the evidence that the defense presented, and on the other is all the evidence that the state presented. To find the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, the scales must need to tilt towards the state and must also tip over. Ladies and gentlemen, the state has clearly failed in this case to meet their burden of proof, and now you know your job. There's only one fair and just verdict in this case, and that verdict is not guilty.